there. I'm Dave Schulman, president of Chest for 2022, and welcome to another conversation with Chest Leadership. I'm joined by...
I'm Subani Chandra. I am at Columbia University in New York City, and I am going to be the chair of Chest 2022, and I am the chair designate and currently the vice chair of the Training and Transitions Committee.
I'm Aneesa from The Ohio State University, and I will be the chair of the 2023 meeting in Hawaii. And I have been the chair of the Council of Networks, and I am currently the chair of the Slate Board Review course, and was recently the editor-in-chief of Seek with my good colleague, Dr. Schulman.
You were the more senior editor, and I was just sort of tagging along, but I appreciate the opportunity to work with you. Thank you.
Hardly.
So we've been filming a series of these, just opportunities for our membership to get to know folks who have served in different leadership roles. Both of you could talk about multiple different things, but what I really want to focus on today is your role as vice chair, chair designate for 21, the remote meeting we held, and then your visions for 2022, which both of you I'm sure have some thought about. And if you want to sort of opine on what 2023 might look like, give us a little sneak peek on the inside, at least what's deep in the cerebellum as to what we might be thinking about, that'd be awesome.
All right.
So let's start a little bit with some background. So again, you had mentioned that you were at Columbia. You're also the residency program director at Columbia.
That is correct.
How do you find time? First of all, I guess how important are these extramural activities with Chest? How do you find time for them in the context of a busy academic life?
Oh my gosh, they're so important because I think so much of it comes naturally. I look forward to them, honestly, because we get to work with a group of phenomenal people. They're amazingly creative. They care about our trainees, about our physicians, about our interdisciplinary collaborations. And it sort of fuels me to work with people like that. And I know people say that, and I am not just truly saying that. This is one of the brightest spots of my career.
I mean, one of the pieces of feedback I sometimes get from junior faculty, regardless of whether they're academically inclined or private practice inclined, is, I don't have the time. How is this worth it for me, right? It doesn't help me generate revenue.
Yeah.
So what are the things that you feel like you get out of your work with Chest that, no disrespect to Ohio State, or Emory, which is where I work, what are the things that you get out of your affiliation with Chest that you may not get locally?
So I think you ironically in your question you answered it, is that you grow your family and your network, right? So you're right, I have a phenomenal group at OSU, but it's great to have an even bigger group. So, for instance, I had a question about a patient the other day, and I called up somebody from Chicago, and I've often called up people from Emory. And so that collaboration helps clinically, right? And it helps your practice and helps your knowledge base when you can speak with experts from around the world. So that's really helpful from being in the network, I think. And then I think the other piece is it makes everything you do fun because they become your friends, right? And that's sort of what you were getting at, is you look forward to every time you come because working is truly a joy.
Yeah, and part of the reason we're doing this series of shows is to try to illustrate a little bit more about the people behind the positions. Because I think they look at folks like us and they're like, oh, very highfalutin and formal, and I want to give them more of that sense. So let's spin a little bit to the program. So we talked with your current co-chairs about the experience of transitioning to a remote meeting in the context of Chest 2021. I'd like to spin a little forward because you all hopefully will have the opportunity to host in-person meetings again. What are you hoping, what are the things that you've learned from 21 we'll start with that, learn from 21 that we want to bring into 2022?
I think, of course, be prepared for anything.
And be able to pivot 4 times.
Yes, but also, I think once you have your vision and your priorities right, we want all our attendees to really have a phenomenal experience all around. So they should learn, they should have fun while doing it, they should get the opportunity to grow, to engage, and whatever we need to do based on whatever is happening in the world and what's available. And I think the team at Chest is very creative. So coming up with new ways, I think as leaders, we are really innovators in education. So I think there is a wealth of creativity and experience to tap into. I do think that when we are hopefully able to have a meeting in person, people will be really, I'm craving that. I am craving being there with everybody and being in that meeting and experiencing all of chess, experiencing the games and experiencing, and we'll all the advances we've made in hands-on learning, in simulation, in virtual reality, all of those things that you can do so much better in person are going to be, I think, amplified because now we've been building for 2 or 3 years.
So, do you have any concerns, given that we've had 2 fairly successful remote meetings, 2020 under Victor Test, 2021 under Chris Carroll, Dave Zielinski? Do you have any concern that there may be some trepidation about coming back in person, despite the opportunity to see people, because we've done a pretty good job of conducting a meeting remotely?
Yeah, no, I think that's a good question. There are absolutely advantages, right? Somebody was tweeting how wonderful it was to be able to spend extra time with their daughter who they hadn't seen in a while. So there's advantages, I think, to being able to do something remotely. But I think what Dr. Chandra had mentioned is that craving people being together is different. And there's nothing that replaces the communal learning experience, right? When you're and why we try to do it online and the chats do really help. I think learning and really getting to play off each other and learning makes a difference. And I think that's going to be, and competition, right? Yeah. So competition is much harder to do online. Well, I mean, we even had games that we had planned for this year that I have developed that we have now put on hold, and we're going to bring them out next year.
So we do have, as you nicely pointed out, there were things planned for 2021 in person, some of the in-person games, that we just couldn't operationalize remotely. And those, so we have at least, I think, 2, if not 3 new in-person games that will hopefully pull off the shelf for the Nashville meeting. Plenty more. So can you give us a sneak peek? I know that we're really right on the threshold of beginning formal planning for 2022, but I know I've known you long enough that your mind has been planning it to some degree for at least months. Can you give us a little bit of a sneak peek of, if not specifics about the program, but what your vision is? I hear about togetherness, I hear about fun. Like, how do you go about achieving those sorts of goals? Because those are big, lofty but fairly vague goals. How do you try to operationalize those for Chess 2022?
I think that there are amazing offerings, for instance, in simulation and hands-on learning that we will be able to really do in Chess 2022 full on. And I think that integrating sort of that active learning and the many, many different ways we do that in is just better experience for the attendee when they are there. It's sort of more of an immersive experience. And so I think different formats of sessions, teaching, learning, some gamification, some edutainment, and all the hands-on learning opportunities with simulation are really going to be, I think, something that's always popular with our attendees.
And in some ways, I liken it to being at a football game versus watching it on TV, being at a rock concert versus watching it on TV. There's a buzz that comes with the crowd. Yes, you can hear the play, or you can hear the rock star, and you can sing along with the lyrics, or you can see the plays, but there's an energy that you get from being with other people that I just think we struggle with in the context of remote meetings. I think you've done an extraordinary job this year. You have the conversation starters, which allow a little bit more personal, but it's hard to capture that buzz and energy of thousands of people in one room at a time.
Well, and I think part of why that's hard, so one is when you're there, you're truly immersed in it in a way that you can't be immersed when you're online. Yeah. And part of what I often talk about is we as women and as men have lots of hats. So I have my mom hat, I have my clinician hat, I have my administrator hat, I have my academician hat and my chest hat, right? When I come to chest, I actually get to leave several hats on my shelf. And it is one of the biggest gifts I give myself is to leave some hats on the shelf and just wear one hat for a week. Whereas when you're at home, you can't be fully immersed because you're still wearing your tower of hats.
That's wonderfully said. You referenced it, so let's do a deep dive. I know both of you have been involved in the Women in Pulmonary Initiative. You both have families. You're both very involved, both in your home institutions and at Chest. What advice would you offer to folks like yourself, up and coming, who are looking to try to figure out, how do I juggle all of these responsibilities? Because it's a lot.
I'll let you take that first, and then I have a list.
There's so many, and I think that honestly, how I handle or what's happening in the moment changes. It changes day to day. It changes sometimes moment to moment. But I have learned a little bit if you have to go easy on yourself. I think we often set very high expectations for ourselves. This must happen by this time, and being as realistic, knowing that it's okay, you can get something done, in due course, but feeling good about what you do, what you create, and making sure, sort of quality over quantity, and just doing one or two things. It's about, we focus a lot on doing things right, but I think it's more about doing the right things.
Nicely said.
And just giving yourself the space to do that. It's okay.
Can I take my shot at that?
Please do.
Number one, I agree. It's valuing what you do. And along those lines, actually, my boy's dad told me something that made me feel so good when I was a young mom, and it's not necessarily the quantity of time you spend on something. It's the quality of time you spend on it. So being present in the moment, whatever you're doing, being fully immersed in that. And then the other advice, which is a little less thoughtful, but equally important, is anything that doesn't bring you joy, but is a task, if you can find somebody else to do, or you can help facilitate your life, and you can hire out, or you can create other ways to get things done, I would do it. I don't like mowing my lawn because I would rather spend time with my boys, and I'd rather shoot hoops with them, right? So if it's, everything has value, every task has value.
Well, I for one have to say, you have both made an impressive mark, independent of anything else at Chest. And I imagine both of you will continue to climb and have opportunities to do great things. And I know both of you have served as great models and mentors for folks who are coming up the chain underneath y'all.
Can I actually comment on how we met each other? It's actually a great story.
I like a good story.
Okay. We were doing a panel one year
Yes.
in the TNT
Trainee
Lounge, yes. And it was on imposter syndrome. And we felt that the conversation was so robust that it was asked to be brought back again the following year. So we did it again. And we ended up talking about, why don't we just write this up? And so along with two other panelists, we ended up writing that up, right? And have really worked hard to create a culture of sponsorship and support in Chest.
Yeah. And I remember you feel, or some of us can feel this pressure. You always hear network, sign up for things, and even though you get that advice, it's sometimes hard to say, well, but how? But apply to a committee, but how? Or I'm not qualified. It's almost come around.
You can go ahead. Now, go ahead.
One, I realize now looking back, it will happen, opportunities will come. Sometimes you just have to be patient and to not put too much stress on yourself that somehow, I'm going to this next meeting and I have to network and I have to get on a panel and I have to do all these things. Just look out. Don't hesitate to volunteer, and once you do get an opportunity, just do your best, and the rest will fall into place. Go easy on yourself.
Some of the best experiences I've had at Chester are actually sitting in the hallway and just watching people, and people come by and we chat. And as you nicely pointed out, Aneesa, great collaborations can just come out of coincidental meetings, and that's one of the other things that happens in person that is a little harder to capture remotely. So as we knock this out, we're going to move into a sort of a speed round, which is not medical as much, but before that, any closing remarks on the medical piece, on your experience at Chest, on what our membership should know about program committee, program planning, opportunities for growth at Chest?
Yeah, so let's say you have the question I often get the most is, so I'm not in a network, I'm not on a committee, you say you have to have experience to get on, what do you want me to do? Right. So here's my tips, right? So number one, show up. show up at the meeting, go to the open forum business meetings. That is a great way. That's actually how I first met people. I remember going to meeting like these huge names that I was like so impressed with, and everyone's so lovely. So number one, show up and introduce yourself. Number two, go to the poster sessions. Somebody had mentioned yesterday, there's many calls for opportunities that you don't have to necessarily be selected for. Moderators. We needed a lot of moderators this year. Almost everyone who asked to be a moderator was able to become a moderator. And then I think the last thing that I would say is social media. Social media can potentially be underutilized as a way to be active, right? So using the hashtags for the topics, posting. There are so many people, young faculty and fellows, that are really active in chest, and we all know, and they really started just by being active in social media.
Well, I'll tell you my story.
Yeah.
How
over here.
I applied to TNT, and because a colleague said, no, you should. It would be a great fit. And the reason I think I was given that advice is because they knew me. They knew that TNT is doing the kind of work I enjoy doing, of creative, innovative education. And my first reaction, though, was like, no, they want someone with more experience than me.
You felt
unqualified, yes. And they were like, no, you're exactly who they're looking for. And I applied having zero confidence that I would get selected. But I was. Right. So I think to not shy away, but also do something that is meaningful to you and feels right and fuels your passion.
And don't be afraid of failure.
I think that's a big point.
Yes. I remember you were actually a sponsor to me. You're like, Aneesa, you should apply for this. You're probably not going to get it. You actually said it. But but that was okay. Your point was, you need to apply for something first and people know your name. And so I advise my mentees out all the time, absolutely apply. Even though you very well may not get it, everyone who you applied for is going to remember your name the next time you come around.
And as I recall, you and I met because of a third party.
Yeah.
Right, and I think it's more than reasonable to say to your friends, hey, can you introduce me? Because it's hard to step, particularly when you're young, but even as you're more senior, it's sort of weird to go up to somebody and be like, hey, I'm so-and-so.
Yeah.
It's more than reasonable to have somebody who is a mutual acquaintance to say, hey, I want to introduce you to somebody who's awesome.
It's called sponsorship, absolutely.
All right. So I'm going to move into a more speed round where I'm going to ask questions that are shorter. All right, so what's one thing, either online or in person, that somebody will say or write, and it just rubs you the wrong way? It hits that neuron in your brain. You're almost like a funny bone. You hate when people say it or write it. Maybe you don't fight it anymore. What's that thing for you?
So mine is a very bad apology.
But so not that phrase in particular, but when somebody offers a bad apology.
Yes, an apology that is, I'm really sorry if I hurt your feelings. I'm really sorry. Just don't
I'm
ever
really
say
sorry
it.
that you feel that way.
That's
I'm
a
really
common one,
sorry.
yes.
Yeah, I'm really sorry that you feel that way. Yeah, that is like that grates on me, right? Like no, I'm sorry that I offended you. I'm sorry that I offended you. I'm sorry that I hurt your feelings. That's the apology.
All right, what rubs you the wrong way? As she tries to say, again, you're delaying this, so it's your turn.
It's hard. I would say
you're doing quite well. I want to give you a compliment
when the first answer is no, to something or something that you're trying to, and sometimes the answer has to be no, but when it seems like the no is not necessarily backed by a thoughtful no, or a no because, or a no here's why.
So I'll share with you mine, only because I think it'll hit close to home, is that like when somebody makes up a word and like instead of saying like umbrage, they say umbrage, like that really rubs me the wrong way. Totally. It's like, you think you know the word, but you don't quite know the word.
Use your word.
So while that's an inside joke, it will be fun here. People realize it's because Aneesa Das may or may not have mispronounced a word earlier today.
It's possible that somebody in this room did do that.
You heard me mispronounce it, but actually I said it correctly.
But I have evidence. And not even co-conspirators, like colleagues who are like, yeah, umbrage? What's that mean? What movie is a guilty pleasure? What movie is like, you love it, you hate it, like you don't necessarily wouldn't want to admit it in public because other people might not think as highly of it?
Now she's going to admit it in public.
Well, I said you might not want to, but you're gonna.
Yeah, so how about a recent one that I wasn't sure I was going to like, and I loved it way more than an adult should. Well, there's two, and they're both kids' movies. One is Abominable.
Is that about the animated movie about the abominable snowman?
It's about a Yeti.
Yes,
as it were.
That's close to home.
It does a little bit. It's so well done. And the other one is Cruella.
Well, with
Cruella was the
Stone.
non-animated version.
Emma Stone. Right?
Phenomenal. So well done. But those are both
I'll put it on my to-do list. All right, what's on your list? Your turn.
I'm not a big movie buff, but something that I've been watching that actually my husband recommended that I have surprisingly enjoyed a lot is Ted Lasso.
Oh.
Okay, not a movie, but I will give you full marks for that.
Yes. Great philosopher, I would say.
I don't know that I can.
Ted Lasso is the first show in a very long time that my wife and I both enjoy immensely.
No, I can't do that. That is going to ruin the whole
Apple
thing.
TV should pay us any money that they get from people who subscribe as a result of this.
Absolutely.
I just recently
Or
subscribed.
if they know Neil Patrick Harris, who they might.
Yes. If anyone knows Neil Patrick Harris,
yes.
hook us up. Ladies, congratulations. Thank you for joining us. Looking forward to future meetings. You outpaced me by a long shot. Thanks for joining us if you stuck around this long.